Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's well class. For today's class, we are making a seasonal crisp with some fruits that are in season. We are on the tail end of blueberry season, but we are entering my favorite season, peach season. So really lovely crisp. I usually associate a crisp with the fall time, more pears and apples, but you can truly make a crisp with whatever produce, whatever fruits you have available. So we're going to focus on these today. As I mentioned, if you have any questions or comments and you want to put them in the chat while we're going through class, I will do my best to keep an eye on them. I'm going to remove myself as a spotlight, and we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a fruit crisp to prepare and get in the oven. I will let you know that we're going to spend some time going through the prep together, talking about these things. I do have a crisp already prepared and baking in the oven, so we can do a final product together. So if you are cooking along with me, obviously I'm going to be skipping some steps. I'm going to be skipping ahead, so don't be alarmed if you're still cooking with me and you're waiting 45 minutes for yours to cook and I am done. So without further ado, let's get started with preparing our produce. So we have some blueberries here. I just rinsed them with a colander with some water. Some folks like to soak their berries in baking soda. I've heard vinegar. You can buy a fruit and vegetable wash from the store. Whatever method you prefer, I do recommend you at least rinse them to get the dust, the debris, any dirt, any bugs. You'd be surprised. You can find some little critters in here from the grocery store because obviously these are picked from nature. So gave mine a quick rinse and I have them dry on a towel. We have some yellow peaches here. My peach here is a little bruised, but that's okay. I gave them a little bit of a water wash because we are going to keep our skins on. We do want to keep our skins on for this recipe because it's going to help keep the peach slice intact because we're softening them in the oven. So it's going to provide a little extra fiber and texture. And peaches are naturally rather sweet, so it is going to be very helpful to keep that skin on. Let me grab a bowl for my pits. All right. So I'm going to flip my peaches to the side. Depending how thick you like your peaches, you can make your slices a little thicker, a little thinner. But I would recommend with whatever size that you're going for, you try to keep them somewhat uniform. We're going to go ahead and put them in our bowl. And like I said, if they are on the extra ripe side, that's quite all right because they are going to be softened in the oven anyways. So this is my preferred way of cutting a peach, is to slice it all around the edge, meeting up at the top, twist and pull, and your pit should slide right out. Laying flat, holding our knife with proper knife technique. This is a shortened chef's knife. This is a really versatile knife. It is, let's see, this one's about 5 inches. Let me let someone in from the waiting room. Perfect. All right. Really nice versatile knife here. I am going to pinch and wrap for good form. My knuckles are going to bear forward with my fingers curled underneath for a protective layer from our fingers. So we're going to go ahead and cut. And I'm just eyeballing my slices here. They don't have to be 100% perfect, but as close as you can get them. So that way some aren't undercooked or overcooked. You could even use frozen peaches for this recipe, but I would recommend letting them thaw before you go ahead and work with them. All right. This is not only visually appealing, it is a really great recipe with some really good nutrition. I'm going to scrape out. Some of the pits had some residue. Happens sometimes when things get extra ripe. There we go. You can even use a spoon to get your pit out as well if your peaches aren't soft enough. This recipe is going to provide us with some natural sweetener as well as we are going to be using some added sweetener, some brown sugar. We're actually going to cut back on our brown sugar in this recipe because we're going to really lean on the sweetness of our peaches. My peaches are very large, so I think I could get away with 3 of them. Both of these fruits are considered to be high in fiber, high in vitamin C, and high in antioxidants. I'm sure you've heard of antioxidants before. They are really great for helping reduce our body's natural inflammation, and we get inflammation from all types of things, from walking, from breathing, from exercising, from even using our brain, right? Inflammation can come in many forms, in many ways, so antioxidants are really great for our body and our health. And something like this is delicious. We're going to be using an oat top crumble with some almonds that are going to provide some heart-healthy fats and some oats that are going to provide a little bit of fiber, whole grains to keep our blood sugar stable. All right, we have our blueberries here. All right, I'm going to take a peek at the chat. Bear with me just a moment. Right. Oh, about the knife. Yes, I will take a peek. This was just in a little, like block with some few knives, but I will try to look for the link of this one. Just a 5-inch chef's knife. But yes, that's a great question. It's a nice smaller chef's knife for those of you who might be newer to chef's knives and you don't want to work with the full-size one. We have a question. I'm allergic to nuts. Could I use pumpkin seeds? Absolutely. That is a really great point. So instead of using almonds, you could use sunflower seeds. You could use pumpkin seeds. You could totally skip the nuts in general. Something, it's going to give it a little bit of texture, and it's also going to add some heart-healthy fats, a little bit of protein, but if maybe that's something you want to avoid altogether, you definitely can. All right, so next step here is we are going to be adding our 4 tablespoons of melted butter. We are going to add a squeezed fresh lemon. Let me flip this guy over. Oh, some of my seeds fell down in. There he is. There's my seed. Okay, this looks so beautiful right now. All right, we are also going to add a little bit of vanilla extract. Fun fact about vanilla extract, I have recently learned that, we've always seen vanilla in the aisles at the, the baking section of the store or wherever. You'll see it's pure vanilla extract or imitation vanilla. And I was always conditioned to think that the real vanilla extract, the more expensive one, was the superior one, where in reality they both serve a function. From what I understand, this is a really sensitive product, right? When you are going to use it for something that you're going to apply heat, like for something that's going to go in the oven, you're going to really lose that vanilla flavor because the heat's going to mute it. Where something like this, an imitation vanilla, where that vanilla is really strong and it's going to be a bit more heat resistant, it's going to shine better. Pure vanilla extract is really good for things that are room temperature or cold. It's all going to come down to those scent molecules as well. The heat's going to help make that flavor more intense. So there's really nothing wrong if you're going to lean on the imitation vanilla. It's a lot more inexpensive, and if you do a lot of baking, that vanilla flavor might shine through a little bit easier as well. All right, we are going to add some cornstarch. This is going to create the beautiful thickened sauce in our crisp. We are going to go ahead and do a little mix. There we go. And now we need to add a little bit of brown sugar. The recipe calls for 1/3 cup. We're going to go down to 1/4 cup. We do want to make sure we're adding some sugar to help create those beautiful syrupy juices that are iconic in a crisp or cobbler, but we can maybe cut back on them due to the natural sugars that are present in these fruits. If you are trying to be mindful of your sugar intake, I would recommend having a sugar substitute or cutting back on the sugar, something that's going to help not add as much sugar to this. We want to be mindful that these fruits already have carbohydrates and natural sweeteners, as well as we want to be mindful that our crumble topping is going to have some sweetener and some oats that are going to provide carbohydrates as well. So if we're just being mindful of those things, we might need to lean on some sugar substitutes, or we can just really cut back, or we can have less of a serving of this, and that's going to cut back on the carbohydrates as well, right? So maybe instead of a cup serving, we'll have a half a cup and pair it with a protein. So those are things to just keep in mind, that if you really love this type of dessert, or you want to try something like this, but you're feeling limited, we can kind of play around with things to tailor them to our own needs. I have some spray olive oil. If you do not have a spray, I would drizzle some oil, and I would take a paper towel and wipe it around. All right, we have a question in the chat. Did I taste a peach to ensure that they are sweet? So disappointing to have a beautiful looking and feeling piece of fruit that is tart. So that's a really great question. I personally did not, but what I will say is, because we are baking these, it's honestly okay if they're not at their peak ripeness, because they're going to caramelize in the oven. I almost said onion. They're going to caramelize in the oven, and they're going to release more sweeter compounds. So that's really the beautiful part about baking, is that we can use fruit that might not be quite ripe yet, or might not be the sweetest, a little bit more firm, and we're going to actually help it sweeten up while it bakes. We're also adding a little bit of sugar to it as well, so that's going to help if they are a bit more on the tart side. It's almost better for them to be a little under ripe for something like this, so that they can be more firm, so they don't really disintegrate when they cook. Right. Beautiful. I don't know about you, but I think this color combination is fantastic right now. So let's go ahead and make our crumble topping. So what do we think so far? Has anyone ever had a peach and blueberry fruit crisp? I've had a peach crisp. Can't say I've had peach and blueberry, but I'm really excited. All right, I see some folks typing in the chat. Let's go ahead and keep rocking. All right, I have someone who says, I have had it before. Ooh, exciting. You'll have to tell me what your thoughts were before we get to our taste test. All right, another participant says, no, but it looks delicious. All right, so we have some folks who have tried it and some folks who are ready to try it. So hopefully you're feeling inspired so far. I have about 1/4 cup of flour here. We're going to go in for 3/4 cup of old-fashioned or regular oats. I always have regular quick oats on hand, so that's what I used here. I tend to prefer the texture, plus I use them more for making oatmeal. If you're like me and you bought a giant tub of oats and you're thinking, what the heck am I going to do with this? If you have ever been in the baking aisle and you see expensive flours like oat flour, you can make your own oat flour. So this was about $2 or $3. You can make your own oat flour by blending up these oats. So then you just basically have on-demand oat flour. You can also make your own overnight oats. If you love those packages of apple cinnamon oats from Quaker, you can do it yourself by cutting up some apples, a little bit of this, a little bit of sweetener, some cinnamon, and boom, you made your own. Lots of ways you can use that big container up. All right, let's go in with 1/4 cup instead of 1/2 cup of brown sugar. All right, here we go. Fun fact, if you're not sure what makes brown sugar brown, I will tell you, but first I want to see if anyone can guess it in the comments. Does anyone know what makes brown sugar brown? I did not buy sliced almonds, so I am going to rough dice them up myself. Ooh, okay. I have someone who says molasses, heat. Someone else is typing. I'm going to let them get theirs in. It's toasted longer. All great thoughts. So it's actually, I guess, kind of, you're all on the right track, but they do add molasses to it. That's giving it its more robust flavor. So if a recipe calls for brown sugar and you don't have it, you could use white sugar and add a little bit of molasses. But obviously, if you add molasses to the sugar, it's going to become a sloppy mess. So they probably do somehow cook it and apply heat to it so it absorbs into it to give her that deeper flavor. But yes, it is molasses. I'm just cutting up my nuts here. This is when you would want to go in with your pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds. Honestly, you could do any and all seeds. You could do a combination. I have pistachios in my pantry. I almost use those. I do think if you don't want a crunchy topping, I would look for the sliced almonds. I prefer more of a variety of texture. So we're gonna have the softness from the oats, from the sugar, a little bit more of a firmer crunch with the almonds. So that's where I kind of prefer more of a rough chop. All right, we're gonna go in with our softened butter. Gonna break that up. My butter may need to be a little more softened, but we're gonna go in with a fork to help mix it up. And you know what? Let's go in with our hands. Helps maybe manipulate it a little bit more with some warm hands. There we go. So this is what's going to create the beautiful crumbled topping. I think all food serves a purpose, and I know we all have been told everything in moderation, but I just want to stress that I truly believe that. And I think it's important that if you are someone that enjoys a sweet treat, to not hold back on those. I know sometimes we have diet-related diseases that might make us more mindful of, but we can always find ways to tweak recipes and enjoy things in moderation, so that way we can still have the things we like. So my point is, there's always room for dessert in moderation. This is a really great, lovely dessert. We are getting some good nutrition from using some beautiful fresh produce, which I can't talk about the produce and not have it close by. There we go. And the fact that we are adding some heart-healthy fats, protein, as well as some fiber from these oats, it is going to really help with the blood sugar stability after consuming this dessert. Things that are higher in sugar, higher in carbohydrates, which fruit tends to be, as well as we added some added sugar here, can tend to make our blood sugar spike. But adding the fiber, the protein, and the fat is really going to help it more of a gradual spike. So it's going to make us feel a little bit better versus eating a chocolate bar that's just pure carbohydrates. So when in doubt, mixed desserts, mixed macronutrients, some protein, some fat, fiber go a long way for blood sugar stability. All right, beautiful. Let me give my crisp a nice little topping. All right, you can see here that the butter is chunked up. It's going to melt in the oven and disperse, and it's going to start to cook and brown the top. All right. I did notice that this recipe I found did not have any cinnamon or nutmeg or warming spices in it. So if you love a little cinnamon, a little nutmeg, a little allspice, whatever sounds delicious to you, you can add. Oh, we lost an almond. There we go. I am just going to lean in on natural fruit flavors here. You can even add like a little pinch of sea salt. Beautiful. All right. Hang tight. I do need to wash my hands. All right, beautiful. All right, now our crisp is ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna clean up my workstation real quick. I'm gonna take a peek at our crisp that's in the oven and see if I can put this guy in. So hang tight for me. All right, everyone, say goodbye to this fruit crisp. She's going in the oven. All right, and our other fruit crisp is officially done. Let me bring it over. All right, behold. This smells amazing right now. So this is 45 minutes in the oven. I actually did this one in the cast iron. I only had 2 baking pans, but cast iron is a really fun way to make crisp. But I don't know, what do we think? This looks pretty phenomenal and this smells phenomenal. You can see my blueberries really cook down. My top got really nice and brown. Some of my almonds look a little extra brown. I would say you could toast your almonds before, but honestly, you can see here my almonds toasted up really nicely. All right, now we gotta let that cool. But let's talk about what are we gonna add to this, right? I mean, this looks beautiful, but I think it needs something. I am going to pair my crisp with some whole milk Greek yogurt. I did see someone said some whipped cream on the top. I think that sounds amazing. You could also add a little bit of ice cream. I'm a big ice cream fan, but unfortunately I don't have any right now. But I will tell you the benefits of adding something like some whole milk Greek yogurt. I personally like whole milk Greek yogurt. I think it's less tart, less tangy. You can make this. I do think the non-fat Greek yogurt is great, but sometimes it's a little bit more tart than I would prefer. So I think that this is a really great substitute for savory and sweet things. I think the non-fat really goes well with savory things, but this is going to add a little creaminess and it's going to add some protein. You could even do a little drizzle of honey as well. All right, folks, now for the moment of truth. Let's go in here. This looks fabulous. Very excited. I can tell already that the peaches are soft. This smells phenomenal. I realize we really whipped it through the first section, so I apologize. Today's class is going to be a little shorter, but just as good. I'm really excited so far. I hope some of you are feeling super inspired to make this type of sweet treat. Go ahead and put my spoon right there. I think I'm going to really take my own advice and do a little drizzle of honey over my yogurt. I might even need a little dash of cinnamon. I'm making this a night out on the town experience. I feel like I went out to a fancy restaurant. All right, what do we think so far? This looks pretty darn good. I'm so excited to try this. I'm going to check the chat really quick just to make sure we don't have any questions before we do our taste test. Ooh, okay. So I'm seeing some good conversations in the chat. Would be good with vanilla ice cream. Ooh, okay. So Mia's gonna try it tonight with apples instead of peaches. Yes, Mia, you can. I would think, are you gonna just do apples or are you gonna do apples and blueberries? You could just do the apples with the crumble topping and it would be perfect. Oh, Deborah says she might go to the store and get the ingredients to make this tonight. Amazing. You could even, you don't even have to buy fresh peaches. Like I said, it is peach season. So if you want to, they're a little bit more inexpensive right now because they're in abundance, but you can always use the frozen version, frozen blueberries. All right, LaShonda says, I have blueberries from a farmer's market and I got a bag of peaches yesterday evening. I have everything minus my ice cream. Oh no. Well, it sounds like to me that you need to make it and then go get ice cream tomorrow and save some for tomorrow, right? All right, folks, ready for our first taste test. I think it's really nice to have some cool yogurt with it. Again, it's going to kind of give you that ice cream feel. Okay. Let me get another bite with some peach in it. That didn't have enough peach for me to give my honest feedback. I will say that this is so good. It's not overly sweet. The first thing I notice is the crispy of the crumble topping. Really nice because the fruit is super soft. You can see I can almost squish it with my fork here. It's not so soft that, you know, you're like, oh no, I feel like I'm eating applesauce. It's pretty soft. It does melt in your mouth. But I do love that with the yogurt. Makes this a little bit more creamy. Adds a little sweetness as well. Which is really good. It tastes more peach than blueberry. The almonds add a little smokiness. Really delicious. If you have a sweet tooth, I love eating sweet treats, but I am like not a huge fan of a large amount of sugar. I think it always makes my mouth feel really thick. This is really refreshing. I definitely would recommend trying it with some Greek yogurt. And this topping, if you're going to opt to remove nuts for whatever reason, definitely add a little seeds of some sort to give it that crispy topping because we have soft fruit, we have the creamy yogurt, we have the more crispy crumble topping, but we have the firm nut, so it's really nice. This is phenomenal. How easy this was. Perfect for yourself, family and friends. Got some folks coming over for dinner. You could have your fruit in your freezer, whip this up. I see a question. Is it okay to do it the lazy frozen peach slice way? Absolutely. Like I said, though, I would let your peaches thaw before you put them in the oven. So maybe get them out maybe an hour or two before. Now, they will be less firm than mine going in, but absolutely, you can do it that way. Really, really nice. You try it with apples tonight. You could even do frozen mixed berries if you're really in the mood for crisp. Anyone else have any other thoughts or questions? I see someone typing in the chat, so I want to give you all a few more minutes to add anything. Ooh. LaShonda says, thinking mango and peach. That sounds really good. If you do that, you have to come to the next class and report back how it was. That would be really good with like some coconut ice cream. What do we think, everyone? Good recipe? I see some good inspiration in the chat, so I'm thinking this was a good one. Yay, we're getting lots of good feedback in the chat. I'm going to put my face back on the spotlight so everyone can see me, but all right. I am going to end our recording, so I'm just going to give some concluding remarks, but you can all hang out. I like to give folks an opportunity to ask questions if they weren't comfortable being recorded. So I'm just going to thank WellSense for sponsoring today's class. I hope to see you all next month at our next WellSense class. See you all later and have a good night.